Good evening and welcome to everyone. This webinar series on airspace, defense, security, and maritime and GIS remote sensing laws. Last 4 days, we are having a series of webinar. Today being a fourth day, and we are going to talk about on scope and opportunities of space sector or space industry particularly. So. That is the thing I want. But before I hand over again session to today's moderator, Group Captain Naidu. So I know is again part of Nalsar, is the adjunct faculty and also is heading, I mentioned you, Akash Law Firm, where he is also interacting with many people, not only in India, but abroad. He is also consultant to many multinational corporations, MNCs also, and he's expert in security, cyber security, and he's helping Nalsar Center for Aerospace, all these courses, both air and space and defense courses. So with this brief introduction, sir, I'm handing over that. With your permission again, I just want to mention about 2 minutes. So before you talk about, and again Dr. Sridhar Murthy. So, what is the philosophy of Indian space program? Of course, I am not authority, but in front of Dr. Murthy. But I want to begin today's session with the philosophy of Indian space program. If you look at Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, father of Indian space program, I love to quote that to begin our session with that. He says there are someone who question the relevance of space activities in developing nations. To us, there is no ambiguity of purpose. We do not have the fantasy of competing with economically advanced nations in the exploration of man or manned space flights. But there are we are convinced that if we are to play a meaningful role in the nation and in the community of nations, we are none to use these technologies, and we convinced to use these technology for the problems which we face in India. So the unquote, this is the quotation, and I can tell you, friends, I think, sir, we went behind his expectations. Though we don't have a fantasy of competing economical, but today, if you look at the developments, though speaker is going to talk, but the space journey started in the 1960s, early 60s, and today our space program has moved from scientific technological phase to commercial business, where lot of legal issues coming. That's where we are going to talk about, but lot of new initiatives, including private participation in the space industry, all those things. I think today we are going to hear from the person who actually involved in this process. I can confidently say that he is the person who made commercialization of Indian space activities. I can say that is Dr. Murthy. He was heading the Antariksh Corporation, the commercial wing of ISRO, which meant for commercialization of space activities. So with this, of course, sir is going to introduce, but I thought is a my colleague and also senior friend, and is a mentor in space activities. So with this, I'll again, sir, over to you, Group Captain Naidu, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Very, very good evening to everyone. Of course, as Professor Balkrishna Reddy said, we have lost a legend as far as Professor Bhatt's demise is concerned. We pay our respects at the very beginning. Coming to the topic for today, since morning, in fact, I've been under tremendous pressure thinking as to what I'm doing between two giants. One, the space law giant, and the other one actually handle the technologies, applications, and more importantly, what is being seen today in India in terms of space policy or privatization and all these terms that we are using. These are the things that actually our speaker today has dabbled into, played into, and made those things. The ground setting has been done by him. Such huge personalities, two of them, and in between them, I don't know what am I going to speak. That's what I was wondering. So I thought I'll bring this book and show you all. This is second, not the first one. Of course, he had written a book earlier on the same similar subject, of course, with a different content. His PhD topic has been on space law, Professor Reddy's PhD. So that way, international space law and policy. There are phrases and sentences which have been reflected in our policy now, and that speaks volumes of the contribution of Professor Balkrishna Reddy to the space law. That's one part. Now, as far as Indian space journey, is concerned, he has just touched upon from early 60s to now, I think phenomenal success. We are not competing with anyone, but trust me, when the Prime Minister proudly declared that my space mission has costed less than a vehicle fuel's cost, it's a matter of immense pride. We create records. This year, we had students launching their satellites. I mean, what best thing can happen than this? That means even engineering colleges, 3 colleges put together. I know one college in Nagpur because we have a small cyber security center there, the Center of Excellence in Nagpur. So that Center of Excellence in Nagpur, Cyber Security Center of Excellence in Nagpur, had a session on mentoring for these students who have actually been part of this satellite launch. So I'm very proud to have been associated with them in a very small way. But what I'm saying is students could launch their own satellites. That's where we are today. Any field today you take, it started from Doordarshan, of course, we all remember that, but otherwise it's been much before that. And Make in India is making things happen much faster than what we all can imagine. That's where you take, whether it is, telecom, telemedicine, teleeducation, agriculture, navigation, big time navigation. It's leaps and bounds it's moving now, and we have our own satellite, we have our own nav systems. The broadcasting, communication, of course, has seen today all of us use the satellite, the cell phones, without even understanding which all systems are playing their role in making this cheaper, available better, available reliably. They are all outcomes of the space program. Meteorology, I know, because I've been into aviation for a long time, how things have changed as far as forecasting is concerned. Our forecasting, especially in terms of forecasting the cyclones, we have proved far better than any other country in the world. We are very proud of the Indian Meteorological Department and of course the aviation meteorologists as well. But otherwise, how they are able to do it is because of the technologies that are available to them. Oceanography. Yesterday we had the maritime discussion. Fantastic contribution from the satellite technologies. Disaster prediction, disaster management, disaster mitigation, some wonderful work is being done, and today we are able to mitigate the outcomes of disasters because of the technologies. Environmental monitoring, we've told, remote sensing, GIS, of course, yes. Then we have the radar imaging. Now, I can go on and on as to the applications. I think that the objective is not that. We have a speaker who is an expert, who is also now fortunately disseminating a large volume of information in terms of being a professor, is heading an institute. So we have him speak about it. But what I just want to say is, whether it is Chandrayaan or solar mission or whatever it is, India has definitely declared its dominance in the space sector and creating a little space for the private operators to begin with, and I'm sure it will only go more and more. It creates a lot of opportunities for all of us. All of us will be benefited whether we are in the field of space law or not, because obviously the space impacts all of us in different ways. Like I was talking about GPS, every one of us is using GPS. Cell phones we are using, the communication systems are there, televisions, all these things are possible only because of the communication and the other systems development in terms of the space technologies. Now, just I want to quote from this book on international law, recent trends in international space law and policy, a chapter written by Professor Balkishan Reddy, To the Future. He says in the 9th module, the perspectives of India's future space program encompass achievement of total self-reliance in satellite technology, rocket technology, and application of space technology to serve major national problems, thus enabling unlimited benefits from the space technology. I mean, what a way to convey, and we are reaching there already. This book was written only in 2015. From there to now, we have moved so much. We have made so much of progress. Thank you very much, sir, for so nicely, paraphrasing what is possible and required to be done to solve the problems that are there. And we are already the ISRO and the National Space departments are already doing it. It is estimated that presently the space industry is worth about 350 billion US dollars. 350 billion US dollars. Okay, for those of you who want to know, just multiply 350 by 7,000 to know what it is in Indian rupees. Okay, now by 2040, trust me, it will be much before that we will be achieving. It's expected to be 1 trillion US dollars. Huge money, and it's a reality going to be reached much before that. With so many things happening around as far as the space technologies and space applications are concerned, the law really can't be far behind, because there are many issues that are happening, many issues that are happening which need the legal expertise. So many contracts in the space sector, so many technically very demanding contracts that are entered. Those contracts cannot be entered unless one is specializing and preparing for such an event. Till yesterday, it was the scientists who were also making the contracts. Today we have teams operating, the people who are in the operations, the people who are in the technology, and the legal experts coming together as teams and preparing the contracts. Before contract, like Professor Reddy has mentioned yesterday, the preparation of RFP, for example, or Antrix like corporations, engaging in various companies. Similarly, we have so many private players in India. They are also entering into a lot of contracts. We have a lot of private players. I know at least a couple of them because I interact with them on various issues, and they are big players. Trust me, there are no startups. But are the startups far behind? No. There are many startups even in the space sector. That means the requirement of lawyers, the people who can help the industry grow, help the industry resolve the problems if and when they arise in an amicable manner, in a beneficial manner, in a mutually beneficial way. There is an urgent requirement. And trust me, that's where NALSAR scores really well, because they, under Professor Balkishan Reddy's leadership in the first as CASL and now of course as CADL, a lot of push is being given to space laws. And thank you very much, sir, for this vision and creating these specialist programs. That's as far as the topic is concerned. Coming to the speaker today, I mean, I really, you just Google his name and you will have pages and pages and pages just coming down on you. That's the kind of, the contribution that he has done. Professor K.R. Sridhar Murthy, Director, International Institute of Aerospace Engineering and Management, is there, part of the Jain University, Bangalore now. That's just for the time being. But in the previous times, what all he has done, he has been an immense contributor. He was heading the Antrix Corporation, led with a lot of success. He has managed that corporation very successfully. He is an expert in space policy and international space law with high level of experience in board level International Academy of Astronautics and the International Institute of Space Law and International Astronautical Federation. He has experience in promoting international collaborations, especially what I was talking about, the privatization part, paving the way, creating and probably environment shaping. That's what probably the activities that he has indulged in can be termed as environment shaping for the future things to unravel. He has also been associated with the UN committees on peaceful uses of outer space. He held position in the office of Prime Minister as advisor to the Prime Minister at that time. He was senior expert on public information infrastructure and innovations in India. Vast experience in space policy and space programs, technology side as well as the management side. That's what differentiates an individual. One being a technocrat is one level. One being able to put that into application and then being able to manage it holistically is something which is an entirely different job altogether. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing your time. And on behalf of NALSAR, of course, you have been associated with NALSAR for a long time. As Professor Reddy said, yes, NALSAR is also indebted to you, to the Committee of Stars from the space sector, who have always been magnanimous in sparing time and coming and sharing your experiences, sharing your knowledge. Trust me, the participants are very eagerly waiting for you to speak more than I say anything. I request Sir Sridhar Murthy sir to please start your session. Thank you very much. Again, my respects to Professor Balkisha Reddy, my professor, and thank you very much, Sridhar Murthy sir. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Group Captain Naidu and Professor Balkisha Reddy. It's always a pleasure for me to join any forum organized at NALSAR. For a long time, NALSAR had been in the forefront of national activities, particularly in the field of legal education, legal developments, and space is no exception. Balkisha Reddy, from the very early times, took great interest in promoting dialogue, discourse, and also bringing together people, and then contributing to the progress of this particular field. And today, if we are on the threshold of having a space legislation, which will have a very broad acceptance of the entire country, there has been effort from NALSAR, and particularly Balkisha Reddy deserves all the tributes for this development. Having said that, Group Captain had been too generous in describing me. I hope I will live up to the expectations. For me, I consider myself as a student even today, because there is so vast knowledge, so many things to learn. Life is not enough, and we need to continue to have an attitude to learn continuously, whether it is from more experienced persons or even from very young students. So I continue to do that. So what all I do is to share some of my thoughts, some of my experiences, and so on. At the outset, I would also like to join Professor Reddy, Group Captain Anand, and all others, my grief at the loss of Professor Bhatt, a veteran in the field of law. In fact, last time I met him was at NALSAR only, and we discussed a lot of philosophy of life, philosophy of legal developments, and so on and so forth. It was always very exhilarating to have an interaction with him. So what I would like to do in the next 30 to 40 minutes, whatever it is, I would like to give a brief overview of the space sector as I perceive it, and probably what will be more pertinent will be to have any clarifications that you seek. We could have some time for discussing about those aspects as well. Space is a field which is all consuming. Since millennia, all humanity had been inspired by the outer space. Always we wonder why it is so, why this field has inspired such spirit of exploration and such a spirit of unifying ethos among all human beings. Probably, I think one of the reasons is that the space is infinite, and it is so vast that your imagination stops when you go on exploring the extent and nature of space. So it is also the nature of each one of you, each individual, each human being. We have internally an infinite dimension. That's why always for ourselves, we are always young in mind. We don't find a change. Only we feel the change in the body sometimes, whatever material aspects associated with our personality, we feel the change. But there is the infinite dimension in a human being. So there is always this unity between the internal aspect of a human being, which is the very subtle, the microcosm, you can micro universe, and the macrocosm, which we see in the outer space, which is manifested. So there is always this dimension which inspires us about space, exploring space, using space to solve the problems on Earth, problems around us, problems in our society, which initially Professor Reddy has beautifully quoted the words of Dr. Sarabhai. So what I would do is I have a few slides, and I would like to go for sharing mode. If you can kindly permit me to share the slides, we can. So the very first aspect is, space today. There is a lot of interest in the value of space for accelerating the economic development. Space is a great enabler, and the space technologies, space activities, how they can contribute to economy is the question that is of great interest. Just in the beginning, it was mentioned that very soon, by 2030 or so, there is expectation that the total space economy, global space economy, can reach a value of $1 trillion. And currently it is $447 billion. What do we understand by this space economy? Space economy means all the expenditures that governments are incurring, that is the public expenditure on one side of it, and all the commercial activities. All together, it is $447 billion in the year 2020. This is the estimate done by Space Foundation, which had been compiling this data year by year. And it was also observed that, in 2020, there is something like 4% increase as compared to the previous year. What is significant in this field is, can you guess out of this $447 billion, how much is the value of all the launch vehicles and all the satellites and the launch vehicles which launch them? What is the value? If you look at that, really it is of the order of $20 to $25 billion, which means that all that we always look at awe and wonder and all that and consider as core space activity, the transportation system for space objects and the spacecraft which work in the outer space environment, is a small part of this space economy. It is the nature of all high technologies. High technologies always, their upstream expenditure is small as compared to the impact they can generate on the economic activities. So space is no exception. Space being a technology which can reach out to different aspects of human life, different sectors of economy, socio-economic aspects. It can generate activities which can create economic value, which is several times. And to use space, we need systems on the ground, the stations which receive data and so on, and the communication systems and so on. Normally, the investment in space is, say, 1x the value of systems you require on ground is 2 to 3 times. This is what earlier people used to call as the multiplier, economic multiplier or space multiplier. So because it multiplies the investment needed and increases the activity. But over the past few decades, what has happened is space technology is advanced to that extent that directly from space, an individual can receive information, receive the signals from space. So you imagine, always in the early part of the space program in ISRO, we used to say, we have 1 billion customers in India. That is, space has to address the needs, or space has to be beneficial to the entire population. That was the vision and concept ISRO had in the beginning. And every one of our past chairman, they insisted that whenever we plan the projects, it should benefit the entire country, all the people in the country. So using space for education, using space for reaching information, which can improve agriculture, using space to know the condition of the environment and, to help actions to preserve the integrity of the environment and so on and so forth. We are familiar today with so many uses of space. So that is the system. Here you can see the space products are there, space ground systems are there, and then services are there. Services occupy the prime place in the economy. Globally, when you see it, it is 80%. That is what this graph shows. The another important aspect this graph depicts is when the space technology was developing, there were many new technologies, and space technologies became useful to many other fields in a way it was not originally foreseen at the time of development of the technology, because it was specifically developed for space use. But then, it found use in many other fields. This, we call it as spin-offs. Spin-offs were predominant. There were several hundreds of spin-offs creating additional businesses, opportunities for services and products which society needs. But now what is happening in the recent years with the advances in information and communication technologies, with the advances in electronics, micro, nano electronics, and so on, we have very many technologies integrated into mass consumption items. Mobiles, for example, we have more than close to 500 million units in our country, and every year 40-50 million gets added. So this, when such a large number is involved, the costs come down because of the mass production techniques, and because of the high technology is integrated in them, we can certainly find components, parts which can be used in space systems also with much less cost, much more economically, and make the space systems more efficient, less expensive, and so on. That is exactly what is happening now. This effect we call spin-in effect. Already there are technologies outside for consumption items, mass consumption items. Bring those technologies. Your smartphone contains at least 9,000 plus patented technologies. So it is this kind of effect that is also changing the opportunities relating to the space today. And it has almost addressed almost all areas where information is needed, where you need connectivity, communication. Space has a role to play. I think this is frozen. And now, recently we heard that in India, many reforms. In May 2021, our finance minister has announced as part of new horizons of growth reforms in 8 sectors that have a bearing to the economy, and space was one of them. And a number of initiatives were announced. Particularly, what is interesting is to expand the private sector participation in space activities. The question is why these reforms were needed. In our country, most of the space activity was happening through the public investment, the investment of the government over a long period of time. It is so in many countries in the beginning. But unless that also spreads into private sector activity on a sustainable basis, it is difficult to grow the activity. How long the government can support increasing needs of the space activities, because space is a very expensive. At the front end, you need investments and so on. So essentially, to open up this possibility for growth to the fullest potential, that these reforms were required. But what was inhibiting private companies to enter into this field? It is the perception of the risk on one side. And even when private sector wants to enter, it will enter into areas which are more attractive in terms of the margins, profits. So the upstream, the launching, the spacecraft which have to operate in space, they are all specialized technologies. They need long gestation periods. They need high investments. Risk is more. So naturally, the private sector concentrated on the services part of it. And now, to sustain services, to grow services, the process of integration, integrating even the infrastructure has started. And that is what government wants to, encourage. And second thing, the assets which are in the domain of the government, always, there is no incentive for very efficient use of the facilities, like what the private sector has to survive in a very competitive environment. So that is another reason. So providing a level playing field, because private companies feared that when government itself is conducting the activities, including some of the services and so on, it will be difficult for them to compete with the government. So they were not coming forward to the level that they want to. So to change this situation, all this, the specialized investments which is necessary front end, that that requirement can be reduced, that burden could be reduced, risk could be reduced. So, and more activities which are happening today in the domain of private sector, like planetary exploration, outer space travel. Today, if you see the SpaceX, which is one of the leading companies, Elon Musk, he has demonstrated, the crewed flight into space with 4 tourists, a crew, and it has gone into a reasonably deeper space, 500 kilometers or so, and it became the third system. And now they are confident to say that, we can not only take NASA's astronauts, but also, the commoners as tourists into space. So there is going to be a new activity. Of course, initially only rich may afford it, but it is opening up. But there will be many spin-offs from this. If you can provide such sorties into space, you can easily provide, super fast transportation, which combines airspace and outer space. And, you can reduce the time of intercontinental travel to a couple of hours or whatever it is, 2-3 hours or whatever, which will have a tremendous impact in terms of the transportation capabilities. And now, a organization also created. Another concern was when government is the regulator, government is the service provider, when a private sector is also doing, well, will there be level playing field? Institutionally, regulator should be different from one who is providing service, and the government organization, if it is competing with a private sector company, it should be on the same terms. There should not be a favored treatment. So organizationally, there should be independence, separation, and so on. So IN-SPACe is a mechanism, organizational mechanism, which is created, and what are its roles and responsibilities are defined. It is essentially addressing the concerns that was, that was removed through the initiatives government has announced for opening up, unlocking the space sector to the private investments and private sector activities and so on. Now, what is needed? Is it a good mechanism? Many of you may be aspiring to, come to NALSA for, for your legal education. Now, this is a policy decision. Now, if this organization has to really enjoy the independence, and if it has to do its job with full independence, it should have the backing of the, a law, like the Troy has. There is a Troy Act which empowers the Troy organization. A similar thing should happen here also, unless that backing is there. So we have begun the right step, but then we should also see that this is empowered through a law process. And certainly, this is something which is to be addressed at the earliest point of time. There are also other policy initiatives announced on the space communications and the remote sensing policy. Why these were necessary? Again, the space communication. Long back, government has announced the policy that private sector can own their own satellite systems, and they can offer the services. Of course, private sector came forward for services, and a couple of proposals also came for, infrastructure. But it took a lot of time for processing. The red tape was very high, according to in the eyes of the private sector. So anyway, because of the conflict of interest, the real investment into the communication infrastructure at this stage when there are the globally, there is formidable competition from companies which own communication satellites and which do business. So any private company from India should also be able to compete with them very well, and they should have a legal and policy environment which should be helping them in the right way. So this is the confidence that was needed. That is why we have some reforms relating to the policies like satellite communication, and in case of remote sensing, again, because of the security concerns, only resolution up to 1 meter was allowed. A decade back, that was the policy, since a decade. And today, all global companies have freedom to distribute data up to 0.5 meter resolution. That is the level of detail in an image. So this difference was a disadvantage to the industry, really. And so some of these things have to be addressed, and they were to be taken care. So we have these reformations. And of course, there had been consultations on the draft space activities bill. This is also taking time, but hopefully this will soon come. As I said, there are certain issues when we expand the activities to the private sector. We have to cover the risks beyond some level, because the liability internationally on space systems for any damage caused in space could be very huge and could wipe out the entire organization. So investment will be inhibited because of such great risk. So we need mechanisms and support from the government. The US government, for example, up to 2 billion, beyond a certain level, your government takes care of the liability that comes. So this is, such provisions are there in Europe, US, and so on. That was also necessary here. You need legal backing again, and also to ensure that there is a compliance to all the international treaties to which India is a state party, and so on. So these were the reasons why we had all these initiatives, reforms, and legal steps. When the activity is expanding primarily from the domains of the government into the private sector, you need both to protect, to encourage, incentivize, and to regulate. For all these purposes, you need a good legal system so that the business can develop, without any hindrance. So when we are talking about scope and opportunities, when we say opportunities, why now opportunities? What is the reason for opportunities? What is new that has happened, so that we have to talk specially about the opportunities? One area, of course, we mentioned, there is a changing policy and legal environment. Certainly, it will create opportunities. So it augurs well for the private investments, private sector activities, and so on, because the government is also interested. There will be a kind of unity of purpose and then development in that. On the other side of, globally, if we look at it, over the last decade or so, with the driving, motivations, driving forces that has come from the legislative initiatives of the US government, many activities which were the preserve of the government now has gone into the private sector. So we have seen a development of reusable systems, launch systems. One of the reasons why space activities could not expand rapidly was the costs were prohibitive. And especially when government does some activity, it is much more expensive. And that has what has happened in US. And so US has privatized many activities, including technology development activities and so on. And today you see a lot of such activities which was carrying crew to the space station, and that is the human crew always was carried in vehicles developed and operated by the government systems. But it is no more the case. The private has invested into commercial system. The risk is taken by the private sector, and there is a competition. So this is all, this situation was created by the government and government institutions to the policy instrument. This shows that how important is the policy instrument in energizing the private sector activities and private sector participation. The cost, because of the reusable systems which have come for the launch vehicles, costs have enormously come down. You can launch in the SpaceX vehicles, reusable vehicles, almost more than 20 tons at a cost of $60 and odd million, which works out to $1,500 per kg, sending 1 kg of payload to the orbit. And the going costs, even most competitive costs, were $10,000 to $15,000 per kilogram. You can see the kind of impact it has brought in. Once you brought in, and proven the reusability concept, and the private sector could do that very quickly, taking advantages of the technologies that were already available and further innovating on them. Similarly, the low Earth orbit constellation, large constellations which use small satellite systems, which I said in the beginning, because of the spin-in, they have become more economical. And we have now constellations of thousands of satellites. OneWeb is an example where even Indian investment is there. Bharti Airtel is one of the investors into this venture, now owned by the British government. So this, for example, it has 648 satellites in a constellation, and it has an aim of providing the high bandwidth internet, to even to remote corners of the globe. So this type of applications had been possible because of use of a low-cost spacecraft, low-weight spacecraft, miniaturized spacecraft, which use the technologies already available in the terrestrial applications and spinning innovations. Earth observations. Today, space data has become critical for generating information and making use of the tools like GIS to generate decision support systems in a number of areas where government decisions are all location based. 85% of the government decisions depend on the location information, location related information, because administratively we are divided based on the territory, based on the locations, and planning is done based on the locational data, and so on and so forth. Then this security, also new challenges, and integrating space into the other conventional systems. You have already heard about it in the last couple of days. And what is happening in international law also, there had been a stalemate because of the conflict of interests of different countries, developing countries, developed countries, economically advanced countries, and so on and so forth. And the regionalism versus global aspects. Whole host of conflicting interests have played. And now today what is happening is national legislations are driving the new development. The US came up with the new initiatives relating to the ownership or the intellectual property on any resources that is mined in outer space. Outer space cannot be under any sovereign control. There is no sovereignty by claim of by occupation or any other reason. So a different type of concepts are developed, and today national legislations will become practices. Already 4 countries have done laws. It is time India has to think about should we do a legislation about resources in space? If so, how do we go about it? And of course, we should also look at, we were one of the early signatories of the Moon Treaty and so on. So all this type of things have changed the global environment in space, where the private sector became the prime growth driver, and commercial activities occupy the prime place as compared to the investments by governments. Governments invest today $90 billion. The rest in the $450 billion is the commercial activity. 80% is commercial. So the other I talked about micro nano satellites. You can see the launch rate which is increasing, and of course 21, 22, all these are projections based on the various plans that are there with the various universities, companies, the space agencies, and so on. And the very small satellites, nano satellites in the range of 1 to 10 kilograms, now have become powerful. They can carry out the applications which can even, meet the commercial standards. So the constellations have become the order of the day, and that is one thing. And you look at the type of range of applications, all the Earth observation applications like disaster monitoring, flood mapping, fire detection. What this constellation made it possible is to have more frequent revisits. The bigger satellites, because of their expense and various other reasons, they could not be launched in such a large number to have frequent revisits and to get data. If I want data within 1 hour of what is happening at some place, it was not possible earlier. Now, with the small satellite constellations, even such a thing is possible. Within a few hours, you can get the data from space and update information about any location, which is a great advantage when we are dealing with disasters, disaster assessments, mitigation measures, and so on and so forth. And there are many such applications which are possible through these small satellite systems, use of radars. There is a 3 trillion type of illegal traffic impact is there because of the dark ships, we call them, because they avoid detection by switching off the mandatory automatic identification systems installed as per the International Maritime Organization's requirement. How do you detect them? Space systems come in handy. There are techniques developed to look at the radio signals received from them and to characterize those type of applications. Then it is used for automatic identification systems also, either seafaring vessels or aircraft and so on. There is lot of gap of monitoring. The terrestrial systems don't cover every part of the globe, and the aircraft, for some space in their travel, they are not monitored. And it is possible to, have a space system to address such applications. So what all you see here in different areas are really the business opportunities, and some of these opportunities have come in the recent years, and there is still unsatisfied needs, and you can develop the business plans to address such applications. And private sector is precisely looking at such opportunities. They say, this is a large constellation, OneWeb, for example. Here, the satellite to satellite optical communication is used because satellite is at sufficiently higher level, so you need not worry about cloud, which can affect the transmission. You use the optical frequencies and efficiently can transfer large volume of data, and then create this network, communication network, which can address internet traffic. Okay, so such applications have become possible. These satellites are of modest investment and size. Very quickly they could be launched. India itself has become a leader in launching small satellite systems. 342 satellites, foreign satellites, have been launched. Not one has failed. It's a remarkable achievement of the Indian space system to have this kind of reliability. I still remember when we entered into the market, there some converted missiles were being offered. There was dumping by the Russian side, and they were offering very cheap launches. But still, we concentrated on few things. You see, maintaining this schedule, frequent launches, good customer service. With this, market was a number of people contributed towards that. And such is the examples in every area where we had to enter the international market, providing our images to US, to China, to a number of countries in the in the Middle East, and other parts of the earlier Soviet bloc countries, and so on and so forth. So this was possible because there is a continuous evolution in the program, and today private sector can do it. They have to look at not the market in India. Market in India is very important, but at the same time, their outlook should be even global, so that global collaborations can develop, and we can look at the global market and technology which will be competitive and so on. Now there is also these changes characterized by the very space tourism and so on. We are a little far off with respect to these technologies. Unless we master the reuse technologies, we cannot dream of this kind of business activities. But to show what has been the changes in the world, I have put these slides. And the mining of asteroids. There is tens of thousands of asteroids, and which is reasonably close to Earth, of course beyond Mars and so on, but which contain very special minerals, materials, platinum and so on, which could be attractive to mine, and then you see think of in situ processing. And in the context of habitats on planets like Mars or lunar habitation and so on, the vital element is water, the generation of water and so on. Now for that you need mining, resource exploration and so on.
And, how long will it, how many more slides, sir?
I can finish in another 5 minutes if you give.
Please, sir, please, kindly.
So there are many such benefits from recent policies. Today geospatial data can benefit from higher resolution that is allowed, and it can, with the geospatial data can relate to many other technologies. Today artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, this and a huge amount of processing capability, the cloud storage, all this have reduced the investment costs, and models, business models have come up, and it is possible to think of new type of businesses and services. You can develop applications, apps, which, for example, a farmer needs, some vital information. If it is giving benefits, financial services, they require for insurance, they need monitoring. All this information in a way that they can support their decisions can be very valuable to business and create opportunities for the business. So there are many such developments available in ISRO. Particularly many instruments are developed, and continuously there is a technology evolution also. So this change scenario is very helpful in terms of creating opportunities for many businesses. Even if one is not going into businesses, even if you take up a career in an organization, your mind can be intrapreneurial, because now organizations need more innovation to stay in the competition, to grow. So if you have develop an entrepreneurial mindset, whether you become entrepreneur or not, it is relevant whether you make a career within a scope of a company, in an organization, or you have your own business as a startup. So there are many such applications demanded in India which have relevance in the context of several economic activities, environmental activities, societal activities, and so on. And these create, some of them is made possible because of the new developments in technology. So we can be part of the supply chain. There could be new applications possible, or even private sector could think of participation in futuristic programs, because the new initiatives and policies of the government allow these things. If you look at the last few years, how many enterprises, just look at the right side of it, what type of systems private sector startups are looking at. Small satellite launch vehicles, small satellite platforms, small satellite payloads, very brand new propulsion developments, like the electric propulsion thrusters, propulsion systems. Then you have satellite constellations for the internet delivery, high speed delivery, and also analytics which can use the remote sensing data, GIS techniques to generate decision support, and so on and so forth. It is amazing. Even government systems have not thought about so many innovations, and today the startups are looking at these possibilities. This is what is unlocking and unleashing the initiative. We have tremendous power, because 50% of our population is below 25 years, and everyone is very positive, enthusiastic to do something meaningful, to achieve something. It is this which is to be captured through our policies and our systems and our supportive aspects. So what is required in all this game, as we have seen, is you need a balance of the total system. It is not enough you have the best regulation, because we had examples of best regulations achieved nothing. It is not enough you have best organization. So you have to look at the total ecosystem. You need risk financing, incubators, your accelerators, mentors, good regulatory systems, then innovation, research and innovation. All this is required. Only when all these are available in the ecosystem, you will see tremendous difference with the activities and their impact. This is what we call as national system of innovation. Every area, every sector absorbs some technology, like we absorb, information technology, and created many businesses or grown many businesses. This is the process that we require when we look at this space. And with this, there are also many legal policy challenges, which is very interesting for educational research pursuits in institutions, premier institutions like NALSAR. Dr. Reddy will tell you what are all the opportunities available, and we need a strategic outlook. If we have a strategic outlook, certainly, we can, we at least we should have aims that we should lower the launch cost tenfold. To do that, what we should do, that should be our line of thinking, the outcome-based approach, as now new education policy is, prophesying. Similarly, can we increase the bandwidth 1,000-fold in space? So the communication concept is different. So the entire thing has to be very strategic thinking, what is required if we want to be very serious with private sector, business, and so on. That is what the government is also, telling. And certainly, I think it augurs well for us who are looking forward to this kind of environment. Yeah, thank you. If you have some questions, I would like to address them at appropriate time. Now I hand over Group Captain.
Thank you very much, sir. That was an elaborate presentation, including the opportunities that are there as far as entrepreneurial, ideas that are there amongst the participants. Now I request Professor Reddy to say a few words, because he's an expert in space law. A lot of things are happening. There are some questions also where in the chat box they are posted. I'm sure during the normal address you will address most of the questions. If they are not addressed, then we will take them up again. So over to you, sir, because you have a lot of contribution that you have made, and please say a few words. Thank you very much. Please unmute, sir. Please unmute, sir. You are muted.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
sir. It was a thought-provoking, and you have given elaborate discussion, including with the statistics. Friends, to sum up, what Dr. Murthy sir said. Of course, our space journey started from 4th October 1957 with successful launch of Sputnik 1 by former Soviet Union. Until today, if you look at, so much development happened, and sir, speaker has very narrate manner. He explained how space technology is. From 1957, if you look at today, so these 6 to 7 decades, so much happened. International Space Station, space hotels, space colonization, space tourism. He was mentioning about space tourism, buying and selling of flats in outer space. That kind of news also we had. All these developments which happened because of space technology. To sum up in one sentence, with all these developments, we have entered a new era. According to Professor Murthy, what he was talking about, we have entered a new era of solving the problems of Earth using space technology. That is what I want to tell. And you may ask question. This is all done by scientists, people like him, and tributes to the great scientist, Indian space program today. Though we have a limited budget and we have a constraints. When space program started, people questioned why the poor country going to space and spending so much of money. But I mentioned in my again introductory remark the philosophy of Indian space program what we have. So with all these developments, of course, today I said technology is inevitable. If 1 minute satellite won't work, I can't speak. That is the stage we reached. Everything sir was talking about, over 1 billion people are directly, indirectly are connected with the space technology. What else you require? I don't think any sector which has that much of impact, positive impact, not negative. So this is, and one important thing when we talk about technology, yes, they did globally and particularly Indian context, scientists has done. But what we, as I know, NALSAR is known as a law university, but what we have to. So when I said that, friends, 4th October 1957, 14th November 1957, exactly 40th day, the international community thought that we should have a legislation. I always say that law follows technology. Technological developments needs law. Though technology is moving fast, but law not catching up, where we are having all sorts of problems. So this is what, but I call it some of the disciplines like space. It is a techno-driven law. Technology and law goes together. When I said that 4th October, something happened. 14th November, United Nations came out with a resolution urging international community to use this, space technology for peaceful purposes, betterment of humankind. Because space technology has a problem. We have, like dual use technology, what we call, sir explained all those, things. So with all these developments, legal things also happen today. We have like, if you ask me in 2 minutes, to sum up international space law, I was mentioning, we have a 5 important international treaties like Outer Space Treaty 67, which is the important, and rest of the space law is developed based on this particular treaty. Then Rescue Agreement, then Liability Convention, Registration Convention, Moon Agreement. All these are all talking about how to explore, exploit the natural resources. If when you explore, exploit, what kind of law we have to apply, what are the principles to be followed, all these things. And India being a party, again, we have to follow those things. And when it comes to Indian context, again, sir explained, though our journey started from 63 to, but recent past, if you look at so much development, creating new organizational setup to encourage the private participation, all those, sir touched. So I'm not going to, but one gap, one thing, sir was mentioning, and I want to say that these are all good. India is doing extremely well. Some question also came, where is our position when it comes, space technology? Friends, I can tell you that we are, 4th, 5th place, and we are the best country among the developing countries. There is no doubt in the technology front. But when it comes to law, legal side, our contribution is, again, not that great what, we used to have in the technology. Even unfortunate thing today is that we don't have a space law. So we talk about so much on the, private participation, but if you don't have a law, if you don't have policy, how can investor, getting a confidence to spend money? Like Professor Murthy was mentioning about that, space technology is a, like huge investments, and gestation period is so long. So can an investor think of, putting investments? Though now, they are doing, but half-heartedly. We, without having a law, without having a policy, some kind of issues are there. When I say law, of course, when I was a student in JNU, 25 years back, 26 years back. So that time I wrote first article saying that India needs space law, because India, why we need space law? Because of commercialization, business is happening, litigation is increasing, and what kind of law we should do? I studied few other legislations I proposed 25 years back. Today, I am happy again. Professor Murthy was, our team, part of our, team. So today, almost best of the universities, law schools, now they are, taking up this kind of issues, and now teaching of, space law is happening few universities. But I think, sir, we need more, space education in general, and particularly space law or space related legal education is very much. So to fill this gap, actually, I'm happy to share again that NALSAR has come out with, innovative courses in, space technology and telecom laws, so where we have a diploma and master's course. We have one diploma that is remote sensing and the GIS, and then master's course in space technology, telecommunication. So I mentioned earlier also, our approach is interdisciplinary approach. Okay, technology with law, technology with management, all those. So we have designed, and this is, again, I want to repeat that our aim, our object is to take space education at the doorsteps of the needy with affordable cost. So, and reasonable, very cost. So those who are interested, of course, syllabus is there on the website, everything is there. So if somebody is interested, you can think of. And one thing I can tell you, with all these, today country needs space experts, whether policy, law, commercial, all these things, private participation. Today companies are spending millions and billions of dollars, but unfortunately not much education. So that is going to have a problem. Today that vacuum is there, but at least we from NALSAR, as part of academic social responsibility, again, I always say that if NALSAR is the best law school, we have to think, next 5 years, 10 years. That is what we thought, last 15, 20 years. And today, space education is happening, but we have to go a long way. So, and NALSAR is part of its, social responsibility is trying to fill this gap with, this kind of courses. Of course, with this, I'll, stop here, sir. We can take some questions. And thank you once again, Murthy sir, for elaborate lecture on this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, we are open to take questions. Sir, we have some questions already. So I will couple of questions. One, Mr. Kativaran is asking, Reddy sir, PhD in space law, can engineers, MTech students or MTech graduates? This is one question. A lot of people ask me also, so I say yes. So please,
Yes, yes.
with your in your own this one, if you can explain, because they
Yeah.
will come.
Yes, you are, Kativaran. Yes, we allow, this, you can do space, PhD in space law. We, encourage interdisciplinary approach in even research also. So, but one, condition is that at least you should have, even though you are a scientist, but minimum basic qualification one needs to have a law. Then you can, do that. Otherwise, also we have a social science, part of social science and technology related. We are encouraging the scientists and social scientists to do PhD, space related or space law related things. Yes, NALSAR is allowed, and if you look at our PhD regulations, it is provided. So we are allowed that. NALSAR is encouraging that, approach.
Otherwise, one of the postgraduate degrees like
Yes.
yes.
Otherwise, for
Thank you.
example, those who have done master's course, they are also eligible. Earlier we used to get questions when we have a PG diploma. Sir, can we do PhD with PG diploma? No, friends, you can't, because you need masters. So today, to fill that gap again, sir, thank you, you reminded. So we have a master's course. Those who are, completed or doing, they are eligible for again PhD from NALSAR.
Yes, thank you, sir. From the PG diploma also, they can laterally get entry into the masters, and from there on, one can pursue the PhD. That's what. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for explaining that. For Murthy sir, I have a question. One person is working in ISRO, is Rahul Gupta. Since a decade in digital and RF subsystem designing for various communication and navigation satellites, IRSS and IDRS, I have applied for the Space and Telecom Law PG course in NALSAR. Kindly throw the light on opportunities for technical and non-legal people through such courses. Murthy sir, would you like to?
Yeah, these courses, are very useful if you are, wanted to take roles relating to the commercial aspects of space. So today, when the companies, grow and get into, bigger and bigger investments, certainly they need people to assist them, and people with the knowledge of not only the technical aspects but also the other associated aspects relating to law and so on have an advantage. So to put it in a very short thing, today no real life problem is unidisciplinary. You need a multidisciplinary approach. This is going to increase your perspective. You will not become the head of the legal division, because you need deeper background for that. But at the same time, you can be a very useful participant in the corporate sector, space commercial activities, and also within the programs in the context of organizations like ISRO. If you have those broader dimensions, because you can always become a leader because of the breadth you have with respect to various aspects of the space projects. And so this is what I want to say on this.
Thank you, sir. And
adding to
sir,
you,
please,
sir,
please
I think, sir, that is true. And NALSAR is, named for that. Actually, most of our intake is again technical background scientists. Today we have, a master's program doing some scientists from ISRO also, that. So the idea what sir said is, broaden your concepts are, you are working in one area, you are expert in that, but doing this kind of courses will give you a overall perception, broad perception about, thinking and writing, and also, solving the problems. So that's what we are, doing.
Definitely, from a personal experience, I can say that I have been an ATC officer in Air Force, and in operations, when we wanted to draft certain MOUs with USAF, United States Air Force, the French Air Force for operations, joint operations, The first one to be remembered is I used to be called because I had the law degree, legal experience as well as the ATC experience. So the operational contribution used to be different. So yes, what Murthy sir and Professor Reddy said, absolutely right. So one more question is on the space insurance part. Now, Chenmai, we have a little more time. So Chenmai Roy is asking, first of all, thank you for enlightening presentation. Can you please share your thoughts on how should space policy and space policy address space insurance vis-a-vis launch services to strike a balance between international obligations, particularly under the liability convention, and creating favorable policy regime?
Okay, the liability convention is clear, and as per the international space law, particularly outer space treaty and so on, there is state responsibility whether the damage is caused by due to the fault of a private party or a government system. The state becomes responsible, that government becomes responsible. And the government should have its internal laws, not for cross waivers or whatever it is. Now the question comes whether a company will have capacity to take so much risk and pay compensation that may be awarded for the damage caused by it. For this question, to make things clear, the government in its regulation, it always and the law, it specifies to what extent while giving the authorization for a space activity, the government will say that up to what level the company or the applicant for the authorization has to bear a responsibility for the liability. Today, there is an insurance system. Commercial insurance can be taken for the launch risk, launch failures. Okay, loss caused by the launch failure. You can buy one more launch. You can also build a spacecraft for a premium you pay in advance. And it is also during the initial operations phase, and also up to 1 year of orbital life, because you see a debris may hit and you can have damage. So so many such possibilities are there. Initial 1 year is taken as a critical period. So many countries and sometimes the people who award contracts insist the contractor to take insurance up to 1 year, covering the launch risks and initial mission operations, and also the 1 year normal operations of the spacecraft. This is the practice, and it is commercially viable today. These insurance rates are not too heavy burden. It is possible to impose. Government imposes this obligation on anybody who wants to launch their own satellite system. So according to regulation, in our case, what is the limit beyond which government takes responsibility for the liability? This figure is not specified still. It is left open, but the principle is agreed by the government so far. This is the situation with respect to the Indian regulations.
Thank you, sir. One question, this is from Krinjal Ahuja. He is an arts graduate and a law graduate. Can he pursue this program in space law? He is asking, Reddy sir.
Yes, absolutely. I am also arts graduate. I did my BA, LLB, LLM. All. So of course now I don't claim authority, but I am I'm learning few things in space law. I don't think our background is a hinder. Until unless you want to have some specific jobs, then they may ask science degree, arts degree, but acquiring knowledge and going and getting jobs, absolutely, you're right. I'm an example for you. That's it.
So the next question for Murthy sir is there a legislation in India on mining of asteroids? That's one. And space debris management, if there is any law.
For the first one, answer is no. The second one, India has been following, guidelines, which is agreed in the UN, that is a UN Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. And of course, there is a continuous evolution in that. India is also a member in the Interagency Debris Coordination Committee, IADC, which is a collective organization of the space agencies, which have a concern on the debris control, debris mitigation. So I think India has been following all the rules to the extent practical and possible. Has a respectable record in this, certainly, and we are, there is no binding legal requirements on space debris. So that is the problem with the international law today. But it is respecting the voluntary guidelines evolved by the United Nations, and also whatever is comes in the purview of the IADC agreements.
Thank you, sir. This question is for Professor Reddy. How far you see the need for specialized ADR systems, ADR agency for dispute resolution in space?
Of course, now not only space, but the institutional mechanism to settle disputes in the international context. We have earlier PCIJ, now International Court of Justice. Those. But institutions, they take time. They have problems. That's why now moving from institutional dispute settlement mechanism to ADR mechanism, that is alternate dispute. Alternate to what? Institutional mechanism, whether it is in the domestic context or international context. So that context, actually, that level, definitely alternate dispute resolution is a viable, and particularly those who are dealing with the space commerce, commercialization, all those things. Companies prefer to go and settle disputes through arbitration, mediation, conciliation. Those are all called, alternate dispute resolution. And definitely space industry. And we are talking about, private participation in the space industry across the globe, including India. So definitely ADR mechanism is a viable option to settle dispute or speedy dispute settlement mechanism.
Thank you, sir. We are nearing the time. We will take one question, Reddy sir, with your permission. Pranjal Kumar Singh is asking, Murthy sir, you may answer, what is the current functional status of Gagan? How far has it been able to achieve the set targets and objectives?
Yeah, to my knowledge, Gagan is, mainly to, it's an augmentation system evolved for the application relating to the aircraft navigation. Since it uses the globally available signals like GPS, and there are the ground systems which are established by ISRO and the Airport Authority of India had been of very high professional quality. It is at least in the test data which I was privy to earlier indicated a good performance of the system. The most recent updates I don't have, but I have no cause for worry of that system with respect to the limited objective it was supposed to serve.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think we're running out of time. Professor Reddy, sir, we will close this session. We're grateful to Murthy sir for sparing your time. Wonderful, so much of information shared. Of course, because of your personal experience, you've been there, seen all that, and that's how such a useful information you have been able to share. Thank you very much. Very insightful expanse of what all you have spoken. This is definitely going to be very useful for the participants. Professor Reddy sir, thank you very much. Of course, you have contributed in space law, so that way it is. And over to you, sir. You want to say something, Professor Reddy?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. First start with moderator. You have done, again, regularly doing wonderful sessions in this moderating, and thank you so much, sir. Again, Murthy sir, sparing time and elaborate lecture. So a lot of, I think, our participants and some of our PhD students, some of the questions you got is from PhD students, sir. Definitely very useful, and thank you once again. And I thank particularly Tariq, Lakshmi, Ruchi. All these are all beyond this program. I think they are working hard. So thank you, and thank you everyone, particularly participants. Without you, of course, program won't happen. Thank you everyone, and good night. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and thank you all. Thank you all. We meet tomorrow evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.